ビデオ
Happy Halloween, ghouls and fools! Halloween is truly the most wonderful time of the year. A time where the weather gets cooler and we can wear hoodies and flannel again. A time where we can blast out songs by the Cramps and Bauhaus at high volumes. A time where we can consume bountiful amounts of candy and various pastries covered in orange and black icing without judgments. But most importantly, it is a time to kick back, relax, and watch spooky media. Throughout the month of October, I always try to make time for some appropriate Halloween material to watch. These can range from Halloween specials, classic horror flicks, scary games, let's play series of scary games, corny guilty pleasures, emphasis on the corny and the guilty.
So with the cadets it was a snap to escape Revolta's trap.
And of course, some of my favorite episodes of Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Someone's rubbing puppets on us!
But yeah, this is Kyoto Video, and I would be doing you, a viewer, a disservice by failing to mention that, yes, anime is also on the list. Like with any other medium, the horror genre of anime runs the complete gamut, ranging from atmospheric gothic horror to tense psychological horror, to blood and guts filled action horror. Honestly, no shortage of anime to watch this October, especially when we delve into the realm of the OVA. With the newfound freedom to spill as much red paint on the cells, anime studios wasted no time at all to make the OVAs the unofficial home of the horror. Most of the earliest OVAs were either horror animes or animes that had horror elements, and one of those early OVAs went over a very spooky subject indeed. Being a sex worker in 1980s Japan.
Hi, テレフォンコミュニケーションマドンナよ。君の会員ナンバーは？あ、中学生なの？今日はどうしたの？テレフォンコミュニケーションマドンナよ。大丈夫よ、マドンナ。
1986's Call Me Tonight tells the story of Natsumi Rumi, normal high schooler by day, co-owner of a phone sex operating business by night. Let's ignore the creepiness factor of a high schooler not only being a lady of the night but also technically a madam. One night, while slacking off at home, Rumi gets transferred a call from a shy teenage boy named Ryu Sugiura. Ryu says he's having a strange problem to him while he masturbates, and it's not hairy palms or nosebleeds. Apparently, when Ryu experiences any sensation of sexual arousal, whether it's through Rumi getting way too close to him or just riding the Mayo surf, he turns into a monster. Instead of being frightened by these sudden transformations, Rumi is instead fascinated by these reactions and enlists herself in helping to cure Ryo of his strange condition. However, these very public mutations end up attracting the interest of Rumi's classmate and thrill-seeking Sugebon, Oyuki Nohara, who is suddenly struck with a desire to really bring out the monster in Ryu.
We're talking about sex, right?
Call Me Tonight was the first OVA that was part of AIC's long-forgotten Pink Noise series. It was mostly a vehicle for AIC to market their sex and violence-laden one-off animes. Call Me Tonight is probably the most well-known of the Pink Noise series, if only because it's the most easiest to find. While not officially released in the States, you can easily track it down with a quick Google search. Though you can't find a good quality raw version of it that doesn't have the goddamn subs hard-coded into the video. Anyways, I don't think Call Me Tonight could have been made in any other decade, and I'm not talking about aesthetics here. This anime could have only been made in the OVA's early days. It's experimental, it's salacious, and it's short, clocking in at half an hour exactly. But in the half hour, they managed to cram in a lot of story, and despite its spicy subject matter, it's really not a fan service anime. You could even say there's a satirical element to the whole anime. So the question is there really more to Call Me Tonight than copious amounts of nudity and city pop? One of the first things I noticed about Call Me Tonight is that it has some surprising pedigree behind it. The original story was conceived by Toshimichi Suzuki, who you might recognize as the original writer behind Bubblegum Crisis. Monster designs were a product of Fidexer One's own Junichi Watanabe, but the most surprising credit I found was that Call Me Tonight had the first character design and animation direction credit headed by none other than Kumiko Takahashi, the very same Kumiko Takahashi who would later go on to do character designs and animation direction for Cardcaptor Sakura, Witch Hunter Robin, and Ouran High School Host Club. And it shows. Even if some of the character designs do appear to be typical for their day, it does show some uniqueness about them. For example, the way the eyes are drawn on Rumi and Ryu have a very round, cherubic quality to them, as if to reflect their youthfulness despite their sexual activeness. It's there to show that each one of their intentions with each other are pure, and not as a means to satisfy their own shared lust. Compare that to Oyuki, whose eyes are drawn more sharper to reflect her ill intentions to satisfy her base desires with little regard to Ryo's feelings. It also fits with her 80s Sukeban look with her long skirt, loose blouse, and massive amounts of 80s hair. With that much floof, that's not even hair at that point, that's a mane. But the most striking design has to come from Oyuki's older sister, Maki, who's proof that you can make a stone butch girl in anime and not have them be an offensive caricature. Animation-wise, Call Me Tonight has the budget you would expect from a one-off 30-minute short film, but it uses that budget quite well. The way Ryo transforms into one of Watanabe's creations of tentacles and teeth are some of the best animated parts of the anime. Each transformation feels unique and honestly scary. But aside from the transformation, the animation is a lot more simplified. Nothing choppy or amateurish, but nothing that will blow your socks off either. The anime is trying to do its best with what it's got, and it's nice that it came out as well as it did. The real challenge that Call Me Tonight probably had to face in its production was the writers having to take its already out there idea and making it palatable. This was a pre-Legend of the Overfiend world at the time of production, so the writing process couldn't have been all that difficult. But still, how does an anime with the premise of guy turn into horrific tentacled alien beast whenever he gets horny and the only one who can help them is a young nubile phone operator doesn't completely go off the rails and turn into a porno? One thing that helps is that the story is very tightly packed. They only have 30 minutes to work with, so not a second can be wasted in telling the short story. Protagonists are introduced, problems the protagonists need to solve are introduced, antagonists are introduced, antagonists show up to make the problem bigger, leading to a huge climax, ultimately ending with the problem solved. It's a simple yet effective way of telling a short story. And even if the structure does come at the cost of character background and development, I think we can forgive in this situation. Call Me Tonight is portrayed as this weird snapshot in these characters' lives, so I don't think we need to know their entire life stories for this anime to make sense. Despite being a horror anime, the story carries itself with a fairly light tone. For one thing, there's barely any hardcore violence. Ryo doesn't rip anyone to shreds whenever he's in his various monster forms, and the only blood that does appear in this anime comes from his excessive nosebleeds before he's transforming. And once Ryo's transformations get established, they go from being a scary occurrence to almost a comical running gag. At the same time, however, I struggle to call this anime a comedy. It gets plenty dark once we start leading up to the climax. Oyuki's game kidnaps Rumi and Ryo, forcing them into an abandoned building where Oyuki plans to have her way with Ryo while sicking her gang on Rumi to have their way with her. And the scene might actually be the scariest part of the anime. It cuts back and forth between scenes of Rumi fighting off gang members who keep tearing at her clothes with anything she can get her hands on, and scenes of Oyuki slowly undressing in front of a very frightened Ryo, and I should preface that none of these scenes are portrayed in a titillating light. They are tense and build up to a frightening climax where Ryo turns into his biggest and most monstrous form yet. But, of course, the tone goes back to lighter when Maki, after hearing that her sister is about to do something both horrifically immoral and incredibly stupid, kicks in the door and blows Ryo away with a mortar cannon, and it doesn't even scratch him. Yeah, no one actually really dies in this anime either. Ryo and Rumi get their happy ending, and Ryo was able to scare off a guy who was making fun of his condition earlier. But the weirdest part is that in the end, Oyuki gets off comparatively easy for her crimes by Rumi forcing her to work in her phone sex business. Yeah, you may have sicked your girl-hungry goons on me while you attempted to sexually assault my boyfriend, but that's in the past. Forgive and forget. And I think the reason why I feel that Call Me Tonight kept this tone might have something to do with its main theme. It really doesn't take a genius to figure out the main theme behind Call Me Tonight. An anime where the conflict centers around sexual arousal turning you into a beast does lay its cards on the table quite clearly. It can be said that the monster that Ryo turns into is a symbol for the male libido in and of itself. Destructive, disgusting, and downright savage. Even the male gang members who don't even turn into monsters are drawn in a more monstrous fashion when they try to have their way with Rumi. You could even say that women are also taken to task in this anime alongside the men, their own libidos blinding him to the monsters they see in front of them that will ultimately do them harm. An interpretation that certainly has a chock full of problematic implications. But it would seem that at first glance what Call Me Tonight is saying is that libido leads both men and women down a road of potential destruction. But digging deeper, Call Me Tonight does not seem to condemn the open sexuality displayed by its cast, especially that of Rumi. In a country as conservative as Japan with its portrayal of women, it's interesting how the occupation of being a female sex worker in Japan is portrayed in this anime. Rumi and what little we see of her friends and co-workers are not portrayed as being morally compromised, nor as girls that need to be rescued from their chosen occupation. Their small specialty phone operator business is seen as just another occupation, neither romanticized nor denounced. And when Oyuki slut-shames Rumi by confronting her about her occupation, she is portrayed as being entirely in the wrong, showing that Rumi should have no shame in her chosen field. The way sexuality is portrayed in general is also worth mentioning. For being an erotic horror that's chock full of nudity, the way all the sex stuff is portrayed outside of horror is just being there. Like, sure, we'll pan over a pinup or take a glimpse at a hentai playing in the background, but those are rarely lingered on. Those shots are used to establish Ryu's condition or to create the atmosphere of a red light district. They are rarely, if at all, used to arouse the viewing audience. Meanwhile, Rumi's interactions with Ryo, while less than chaste when compared to the standards of most anime, never really goes past heavy petting. The only true erotic scene that happens between the two is this. But there's an important reason for that. The motivation for Rumi to help Ryo is not purely based on her duty to fulfill a special request, but also because she genuinely wants him to be comfortable in expressing his sexual desires without him becoming a monster. The moral of Call Me Tonight is that it's not lust itself that turns people into monsters, but unrestrained lust. Letting your lust overtake you will cause you to hurt others and yourself in the end. And the best way to combat this is by easing yourself into your sexuality, understanding the value of consent, and overall being in a healthy sexual relationship. Call Me Tonight could be an excellently weird if a little heavy-handed allegory. Then again, the anime doesn't want to stay in its weirdness and thus can't resist coming up for air when it decided to explain why Ryo turned into a monster. Short answer is, it's aliens. I guess some people may have wanted an explanation, but the answer doesn't really change anything. All it does is make Ryo fight back against the alien, and he along with Rumi end up fixing the problem in the end. So yeah, moral of the story is all your intrusive thoughts of lust are the fault of aliens. There's your lesson. Go enjoy it. Call Me Tonight is something truly original. Despite edging dangerously close to hentai, it's still an excellently subversive morality tale about the importance of healthy sexual relationships without even showing the sex. It's oddly refreshing to see such a nuanced view of sexuality during a time where other anime productions wielded sexual themes like a blunt instrument. And on top of it, it's still quite scary without going into too dark of a territory. That being said, it might be hard to recommend to most casual viewers due to its adult themes and its short length. Even if the anime does have a story that's wrapped up tightly, some people might come away with wanting more. If neither of those bother you, then Call Me Tonight is worth the half hour. Especially during the spooky time of the year.
Skip.